2, 1. Thank you for tuning in to the VOR podcast, where I believe that the author of this reality is the God of the Bible. We are doing a show tonight that is kind of dangerous. I'm calling it Silenced for the Gospel. Now, that's a little bit sensational, because when I was censored or banned on TikTok last week, I wasn't yet talking about the gospel. But if you're familiar with my content, the mission statement of VOR is to defend the Creator in the information war. And so we try to validate Scripture, the Word of God, and in a world system built on lies, apparently the truth is the enemy, and we're learning that. So what we're going to cover tonight is what I was banned for, just quickly, and then I'm going to look at the bigger picture of what's going on here with censorship and why this one hit a little bit differently. And then we're going to cover the science of how do we say this? The accepted narrative of what we need to agree to, and if we don't agree to it, it is now considered misinformation. And this isn't a surprise, but when I was banned, I was only talking about that we can trust the Bible. I think I have here, let me see if I can find the actual, all right, let's slide this over here. Share, and I don't like how that looks. I got to slide over to this one here. Okay, let me slide this over. This, if you have not had the privilege of being banned on TikTok, is what you get. Your live access has been removed. Sometimes it's for hate speech, which if you're familiar with me, I don't hate anyone. And yes, I don't like the theory of evolution, but if you believe in the theory of evolution, that's your thing. I just don't like that we were taught this as fact. I was on for less than 10 minutes, you can see here. And I appealed, and they said, yeah, no, you are, your live access has been removed for misinformation. I had said no positive claims. My background said these are the reasons we can believe in the God of the Bible. And I was having a nice discussion with an atheist. He was asking about if God's omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient, why evil, that whole thing. We're having that discussion. And then, boop, gone. So I appealed, and they upheld it. And they said, we reviewed your appeal and found that your live violates our community guidelines. What did I violate? Violation reason, misinformation. Listen to this. In a global community, that's a good start, it is natural for people to have different opinions. But we seek to operate on a shared set of facts and reality. Not actual truth, just a shared set. We do not allow inaccurate, misleading, or false content that may cause significant harm to individuals or society, regardless of intent. If you watch my content, I'm against a revolution. I'm against anything violent. I'm against any kind of discrimination. I don't judge anybody. I love everyone. I want you to believe in the Bible and be confident that God, the Creator, loves you and wants to have a relationship with you. So I have a hard time imagining that would be can cause significant harm to individuals. I guess the significant harm that I'm providing or causing is to people who have been teaching this theory through gaslighting and manipulation, and we're tearing it apart. So I guess that's who we're harming. Anyways, significant harm including physical, psychological, or societal harm and property damage. Obviously, this is an entirely erroneous charge. If you know my content, you know this is an entirely erroneous charge. But this one stings a little bit because I've been banned for saying you should have vitamin D because it's good for you and it helps fight viruses. I've been banned for, I used to do conspiracy, talking about 9/11, which happened yesterday, and I quickly put together a video and it went under review, and I made no inaccurate statements. I said that 2 airplanes took down 3 buildings 22 years ago, and I had to take the video down because it was going to get banned as well. Anyways, not a shared set of facts, I guess, in that case. But this time I was banned for not hate speech or bullying, misinformation. And the misinformation is that I believe in the Bible, and I believe that God created us and put us on this earth, and we can trust the Word. And science is wrong about the Big Bang and evolution. When we all saw this unfolding a couple years ago, we were scared because it started off like we have to silence people who are suggesting you do or don't do certain medical treatments. By the way, I have no opinion. I don't care. I'm not a doctor. I don't care what you do. That's between you and your family and your doctor or whatever. You can't talk about these certain things because that's dangerous, right? It's like, oh yeah, we approve that censorship because we can't be dangerous. Fine. And then there was the election. It's like, you can't talk about the election. Again, I don't care. I think Donald Trump plays for the wrong team, and I think we were all had with that thing. But anyways, it's like, you can't talk about that because then January 6th happened. And then obviously, climate change. People are like, we can't talk about climate change, censorship. It's like, fine. The society has accepted this idea that we need to censor people who disagree with the standard narrative. Well, where does this go? And where was it always going to go? It goes that believing in Jesus and believing in the Bible is misinformation and is unacceptable. And you can be censored for it. And since this is what we do full time, and this is what I believe God called me to do and what I'm very passionate about, it's very concerning to me that not talking about anything medical or anything climate or anything that could be construed as dangerous, elections, whatever, we're still getting misinformation violation and our access removed for saying that I believe in the Bible. So when I say silenced for the gospel, technically I hadn't spoken the gospel yet, but if you've seen my apologetic, I get into that quite a bit, especially if I have an opportunity. I was banned for believing in the science of the Bible. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to look at, this wouldn't fly on TikTok apparently now, we're going to look at what they've taught us. We're going to do the Big Bang, abiogenesis, evolution, the flood. I'm going to try and skim over each one of these. And then we're going to look at what science is actually showing and how the official narrative is wrong and who's on which side of the misinformation. Because this isn't about the truth. It's about believing whatever they say blindly. And what they're saying is you can't believe in the Bible. Where does this end? Where does this go? In Matthew 10, it says that, Jesus says that the children will turn the parents in for them to be killed, basically, executed. This scenario to me seems like you're going to have Christians at one point who aren't Christians publicly, like we're just really quiet about it, right? We're not Christians, we're not underground. But the parents know you're a Christian, or the children know you're a Christian because you got a Bible and like you pray and stuff. So they go to school. It's like, remember, kids, you're doing your civic duty. If your parents are Christians, you got to turn them in. Kids are like, yeah, my parents are Christians. Jesus said that. Matthew 10. So something I'm going to share here, which I probably shouldn't. I would imagine that everyone would suggest that I don't, but I'm going to anyways. There's a beef going on TikTok, and the beef is between myself and a certain professor, Nixie, doxing him, I guess, here. Some of you know him. Some of you have seen my debates with him. I debated him for hours in front of thousands of people about the Big Bang Theory being done. And that set off, basically, he's blocked me, and he tells people that I used hate speech. And you guys know me. Obviously, you know I didn't use hate speech. The thing about this is he's a grown man. I think he's in his 50s. He's an astronomer, and he is all for my censorship. I went into a live show the other day. I can't be on the live show because I'm currently under suspension, but most of the atheists know me. A lot of them know me, and they invite me on, and they think it's fun. Like, whatever. I wish you could have seen, if you're on YouTube and you don't know what's happened on TikTok, the streets of TikTok, the things that have happened in front of thousands of people. It's been really fun engaging with these atheists. This is where the real information, I think, is being levied. But anyways, the guy running this TikTok here says, I'm an atheist, prove God exists and win $1,000. And he sees me in there and he goes, oh, VOR, come in. And I said, I can't. I'm under ban for misinformation. To which Nixie says, let's see if it plays. Is it not going to play? It's not going to play, is it? I was afraid of some little technical glitches like this. I'll just let it scroll up a little bit. Okay. I'm just going to have to share it every little bit that it goes through. I really hope that this plays. Would love to join, but I'm currently on ban for misinformation. Let's see if that actually updates. It's not going to. What if I update it? QuickTime Player. I'm going to try this here. Let's see if it does it. Oh, look at that. Maybe I've been having to do this anyways. Look at this. There it is. Would love to join, but I'm currently on live ban for misinformation. To which Nixie says, VOR, that should happen 24/7. Okay. Then he says, oh, it's playing now. Why am I not surprised? Mario says. VOR, dang, it would be fun if you would have. Come on, we were looking for drama. And then I said, you people pushing censorship are the enemies of humanity. I'm pretty spicy on there. Then it says, Mixie says, let it play. Come on here. I should have proofed this a little bit more. This is TikTok. If you guys haven't done it, this is what the live shows look like. Something we agree on. Being spicy, you would have been the first to approve what the leader in Germany was doing. Because I think that's a big part of this here. Let's say there's one more thing he said that I wanted to share. Oh, VOR, you are the enemy of truth. Your cell phone disproves your beliefs. They use that all the time, like believing in the Big Bang somehow makes your cell phone work. And VOR, why don't you deal with the fact that you share misinformation? And I think I must have missed it in here, but he said I'm the enemy of truth as well. So anyways, I wanted to share that because he's a grown man. I think he's a teacher. I'm pretty sure he's a teacher. I want to make sure I get that right. He's got a bunch of students and he gets to tell them that, believing in God is stupid and I misinformation. But this grown man is in favor of me being censored for misinformation because I don't believe what he believes. And this isn't like a 20-year-old, like a Gen Z or Gen Alpha, whatever, millennial, whatever. I guess millennial. This is a grown man, and he's like okay with censorship. And it's amazing to me that this happened this quickly, that we went from, when I was a kid, like communism was bad and like censorship was really bad and like free speech is what keeps this thing going. Even if you disagree with someone, you have to let him say it, right? To now basically going, yeah, you believe the Big Bang is dead. You believe in the Bible. You need to be censored. And we got here, like the water was turned up slowly enough that now that we're here, I think like I want to bring attention to it. I understand YouTube could be mad at me for this. I understand this is controversial, but as like a human rights advocate and as somebody who believes in freedom, it's a big deal that if somebody says they believe in the Bible and they distrust the scientific narrative about our origins, that the world's just saying, yeah, we need to ban that person. But this is also not a surprise. I have to go through 2 monitors now, so it takes me a little bit. We're going to get rid of that, and we're going to show this. Have you all read 1984? We need to make a follow-up book called 1985. We're here and it sucks. That's what I would call it. It's a working title. The national slogan, let's see, let me go over here. Sorry for the not fully understanding my screens. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. These words are the official slogans of the party and are inscribed in massive letters in the white pyramid, of course, of the Ministry of Truth. Because it is introduced so early in the novel, it creates this creed serves as the reader's first introduction to the idea of doublethink. by weakening the independence and strength of individuals' minds and forcing them to live in a constant state of propaganda-induced fear. The party is also able to force its subjects to accepting anything it decrees. Orwell, I would say he was a prophet, but he was in on it, so this was not a surprise. They were like, watch, we're going to be able to pull this off. You're not going to believe it. The party is able to force its subject to accept anything it decrees, even if it's entirely illogical, which we're going to cover the illogicality about their belief system and what they're forcing us to believe and how much better the biblical narrative actually looks right now. For instance, the Ministry of Peace is in charge of waging war. The Ministry of Love is in charge of political torture. And the Ministry of Truth is in charge of doctoring history books to reflect the party's ideology. Holy Moses. Holy Moses. I was going to talk about war a little bit, and then I looked at the community guidelines for YouTube, and I can't talk about war or rumors of war. That's a quick way to lose everything. But yeah, this is something we need to all think about here. Ministry of Peace is in charge of waging war. Ministry of Love is in charge of political torture. The Ministry of Truth is in charge of doctoring history books to reflect the party's ideology. Do you think that Nixie read this book and was like, man, I hope that doesn't happen? Do you think anybody read that book and was like, man, the party, we need to serve the empire? Does anybody watch Star Wars and go, Darth Vader's on the right side of history? It's not what we do. It's not what we should be doing. We should be going, yeah, we want to fight with the rebel force and Luke Skywalker because the empire is bad. Like cold, ruthless tyranny is bad. And you know who was really afraid of this? Was C.S. Lewis. If you're familiar with his work, he's probably my hero. And he wrote towards the end of his profession or of his illustrious career that hideous strength. I believe I got the name of the book correct, and it was about a scientific technocracy, a scientific takeover, where basically this echoes this, where anybody that questions them is silenced. Unbelievable. It's watching this unfold in real time and being not a spectator is harrowing. And every so often I'm going to come back to in this video, Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life. All things were created by him. He was with God in the beginning, and everything was created through and with him. And he came to his people, and his people refused him. Or he came to his world, and his world received him not. And he came to his people, and his people, How does that go? He came to his world, and the world knew him not. And he came to his people, and his people received him not. This issue with truth, as it relates to the Bible, what we're going to try and really cover, is a concerted effort to delete Jesus and his truth and the Bible from the books. Like, you could almost make an argument that the whole pandemic and like everything that happened was just getting people to accept canceling Jesus. I would want to make that argument. I'm maybe going to partly do that tonight. So I guess at my core of this argument, there is truth, and it's Jesus. And there's a bunch of people who hate the truth and want to silence Jesus. And they silenced him when he was here. You know what's crazy is that Jesus was punk rock. When I was a kid, what punk rock was like anti-establishment. He was that. And Christianity is now counterculture. That's where we're at in the world. Christianity is counterculture. Because we have to stand up against the tyranny and defend truth at maybe risking everything in doing it. So the book that they hate predicted this time and the moves they would make. And this is one of the first times ever I really see this going in the direction where they label Christianity as the thing, the ail of all of this world, and it needs to be eradicated. So as long as I can say this, I will. See how long this video stays up. Anyways, check this out. This is a video on 9/11. It's a Washington Post hit piece on why you can't question the official story. And this certain lawyer guy that they interview. I get so many copyright strikes on this account, so if you don't see this video, you can look it up. It's called, on Washington Post, it's called how 9/11 truth or conspiracy theories fueled the war on reality. They know that this is a war on reality. They know this isn't about politics. Listen to this.
What has happened now is, instead of being divided as to Democrat, Republican, what we've gone into is being divided as science believers and science deniers.
I could stop that video and do an hour just on this, just on that. I mean, we have a lot to cover tonight. You guys have heard me talk about on my live show that they play the left-right game, and it's really effective because they do terrible things in the name of the left, and everybody votes right, and then they do terrible things in the name of the right, and everybody votes left, and you just go back and forth, right? Well, they did this with a theocracy, with Catholicism in the Dark Ages and that whole time, and what came out of that was the Age of Enlightenment and radical humanism and secularism. And this is what the scientific establishment that we're under was birthed in. It was forged in the flames of trauma related to the theocracy, the Catholic theocracy that was in charge. So they can go left to right, and they can go from theist to atheist. They can do this, and they can accomplish the same thing. They can control you. They say they're the God Kings, they are God, whatever, and then that runs out. And then they're the priests that represent God, and then that runs out. And then people are mad because it was like the people were using religion for control, and then they go to secularism, and then they go, well, we're scientists, and you can't question us, because if you do, we're going to end up in that terrible situation that we were in before. You don't want to, you got to vote Republican, so you don't want to be, Democrat, right? That was bad. You don't want to, go back to theocracy. It's a slippery slope into superstition, right? This is what Carl Sagan always talked about. God rest his soul. This idea of if you're not trusting nuts and bolts material science, then you're into woo-woo superstition and religion. Next thing you know, we're going to be in a theocracy. So they're just doing this, right? And this is what this guy is saying. Hey, but it used to be about whether you believed the official narrative on 9/11, and then it was about if you believe the official narrative on COVID, and then it was about if you believe the official narrative on the election, and if you believe the official narrative on climate change, and do you believe the official narrative on actual reality? Because we're talking about reality, how the universe got here. And we've figured it out. We know how the universe got here. And we know that that man is just an animal, a mutated animal, in a meaningless universe, in an unprivileged place on a pale blue dot. And we know this because the alternative is special creation, and we refuse that. So when this guy says it used to be about Republican and Democrat, and now it's about a war on reality, and do you trust the science or do you not trust the science? They're really showing you, I hope this is illustrating to you the levity of the situation of me getting banned for misinformation talking about the Bible. This is a war on reality. It's a war on what we believe about reality, because they can't do what they want to do to you if you believe what God says to believe. What you believe determines how you react and what you do. You don't think that believing that you are an animal changes your sexual ideology? You ever watched animals? You think they have any moral hesitation or constraints on their sexuality? What you believe about this reality, and you thinking that it's meaningless, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Why would you worry about eternity? Why would you worry about what's good for other people? If you're taught the ideology of survival of the fittest, what did Jesus teach? The opposite. He who is greatest among you will be the least among you. This is dyslexia is fun. He who is the greatest among you should be the least among you. I'm paraphrasing. The opposite of survival of the fittest, survival of the meekest. This thing that we're going to unravel tonight is the antithesis to the biblical narrative. And we're getting to a point. Maybe this was a fluke thing, and I get back on my live on Thursday, and I can just get back to it. Whatever. I can tell you I'm going to be like, what can I say? What can't I say? 13,000 people, 30,000 people come in the live show. I guess I say I believe this. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. But this effort, if it doesn't get better, if it just continues in this direction, ends up in a situation where you can't talk about the gospel in public. I mean, we have places in the world that you can't do that right now. Like, think, I'm 45. If you would have told me 20 years ago that we would be in a scenario where this could potentially happen in America, I would have said, no way. So, I used to believe it was a Christian nation. There's no way. Okay, now let's hear what this person says again.
What has happened now is, instead of being divided as to Democrat, Republican, what we've gone into is being divided as science believers and science deniers. And it's become a matter of life and death. Now we're having arguments on reality and what is real and what is not.
We are grappling with the big lie.
So, again, I don't care about any of the politics stuff. Any of that. I don't care about any of that stuff. YouTube, NSA, CIA, whoever's listening. I don't care. Okay? I believe in eternity. I believe in the God of the Bible. That's my whole thing. I don't care about who's president or what you do with medicine. And they're showing the B-roll. Like, just play different B-roll there. Science denial. Like, I want to remake that video and put different B-roll in of showing Darwin's face and the Big Bang and, the animation of you going from a worm to a whatever. They're putting B-roll in, but listen to what they're actually saying.
Different outcome in the election.
Not having a common set of facts can seriously affect national security, because it just shows the discord that prevails in our country.
We're seeing protests.
National security? If people have different opinions? What kind of double speak? What is that? If you have a difference of opinion, you're the reason why.
Protesters overcome the police. The police are now running back into the Capitol building.
And I think that's far more dangerous than it was when 9/11 truthers started, because we're denying reality now. I tell my students, I said, we're in a virus right now, but I want you to be a good virus. I want to teach you about evidentiary evidence. I want you to spread it exponentially. If we teach our kids how to think, if we teach them how to research, then there's hope. That's the best I can tell you. I fear a lot.
Interesting way to end that. If we can teach our kids how to think, if we can just get them to entirely forfeit any of their God-given intuition or innate deductive abilities, if we can just make them think our thoughts and make them think that they're their own thoughts, if we can teach them which sources are speaking the truth because it's a shared set of facts, and do the right research with the right bona fide whatever organization or Columbia University or Bill Nye or whatever. We can't have these people having... Think about this. I was talking about Nixie earlier. I'm an adult. I'm a grown man. I'm 45. A lot of you listening to this are my age, younger, older, but in this area. My demographic's like 35 to 55. They're literally telling you that you can't think for yourself because it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. You might, with all of the information of human history aggregated and available at your fingertips, you might go off and have your own thought, and it might disagree with what they want you to believe. Nixie hates Christians. You want to talk about hate speech? If you guys are on TikTok, go watch his next live and watch him blast Christians for their belief, for how stupid they are. And they believe in fairy tales and your sky daddy, and poof. He always says that. You want to talk about hate speech? And he's the guy. He's like the professor. He's the guy. You got to go to him. And if you disagree with him, you're censored. Just so happens that the people with the most power and the loudest voices seem to be the people least interested in hearing about the Bible. Is that an accident? Is that anything new? No. No. This is going to be a little bit more proselytization than I would do normally. Okay. Jesus says, "And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to help you and be with you forever. The Spirit of truth." The Spirit of truth. That's who I defend. That's who I'm interested in. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees him or knows him. Jesus said this 2,000 years ago. I'm going to send you the Spirit of truth, but the world's going to reject him because it's not interested in the truth. Just their shared set of facts. During my ban, I posted on Facebook. We get a lot of traction on Facebook. This was something that one of my buddies sent me. This is what they want you to believe. If you don't believe this, you don't agree with the shared set of facts, and you should be censored. Human evolution, from protocells to people. I write, nobody actually believes in this fairy tale, do they? Because I'm ornery. That's the closest you could ever see me to get into hate speech, but okay. Discover the major milestones and key adaptations that have shaped the course of human evolution. Do you think they have any evidence for any of this? Do you think this is truth? Do you think this is innate, inherent, universal truth? This. Well, let's go through it. You've got, that's one of the characters in a kid's show with a tail. You've got Pokey. That's Gumby's guy. No evidence for these things. Egg. Well, we kind of went backwards. Well, we're doing good. We got this worm thing. This looks like we could almost walk. Boop, back to the egg. Then a peanut. Then the little coin purse that you put your dirty pennies in. Then a noodle. Then a longer noodle. And then a bacon. This is science, okay? There's nothing to support this. This is just what they believe. I like the color changes too. However, we evolved pink. Niche. It's niche. Then we go to fishy guy. I almost want to do Mr. Garrison's monkey fish frog. We got the floating. I think this guy's on a Lev system, a Maglev system. We got our arms, first arms. What does it say here? Jaws, scales, teeth, stomachs, spleens, hemoglobin. You know what's fun to think about is evolving blood. Think about that. What evolved, the blood or the person creating the blood? Well, apparently this guy did it because they have that in their Smithsonian warehouse. Then we have the alien hammerhead fish, and then like a coelacanth. This is great. That's actually a coelacanth. I know that one. I got this one. Ding, 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 ding. 420 million years ago. I got a funny story about a coelacanth. You guys want to hear a funny story about a coelacanth? You guys are going to like this. Coelacanth. Living fossil. The living fossil comes from a lineage of fishes that was thought to have been extinct since the time of the dinosaurs. They were totally shocked. Look, fish once labeled a living fossil surprises scientists again. Reuters. A wondrous fish is exactly the same fish as this one. So I just want you to think about this in their story, okay? 420 million years ago, coelacanth shows up and never evolves ever again. They don't show that on here. Just go ahead and make coelacanth just go over on its own little side. Done evolving. Win. Coelacanth win. Done. Perfect fish. Never evolves again. But he doesn't evolve. He stays exactly the same. Or you know what? What if that fish was built like that and we thought it was buried in 420 million years ago because we're wrong about stratigraphy, and we want to believe in this thing? Then they're wrong. Like, holy shit, there's the fish. Excuse me. There's the fish. What do we do with that? Maybe that fish was created with the rest of them and was buried in a flood. Nope. That fish is 420 million years old and just stopped evolving because science. Anyways, I don't know what to believe now with their step ladder thing because coelacanth still exists, but here we go. Now worm guy, flat worm guy, fat worm flat guy. One of these guys is Tikatala right there. I think maybe one of them anyways, whatever. And then they crawl out of the ocean because everybody believes that. It's like the Little Mermaid. It's the Little Mermaid story. We're coming out of the ocean. Under the sea. No, onto the land. And they go in there. Things are better. Where it's not wetter. They go out of the land. And they go back in and out and whatever. You got dog, dinosaur, monkey, fish, frog. This guy's cute. He's made of felt. He's got spiky back, which we totally have or don't have or whatever they want to believe. Oh, and then back to mouse guy. Back to mouse guy. Then whatever. I shouldn't have spent this long on it. But then monkey, chimp, pre-monkey, and then human ends up being like, whatever. Here we go. Here we go. And here we are. Superhumans. Great. So, be encouraged because I posted this and there's 300 comments. And other than that top one, she's my kind of girl. Talking like a sailor. Only a fool believes they come from an ape. Sure beats magic. Anyways, some really cool comments on here. A guy said I'm a biologist, former agnostic. Studying genetics convinced me there was design years ago. I'm a full-bore creationist. Almost 30 years later, the evidence is overwhelming for purposeful creation. Textbooks, however, have an agenda, and they mislead and prognosticate lies in the name of science. And there's a lot of this. Anyways, omnipresent. So this was really encouraging. I posted this the other day, and what it did is enough interaction is like 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 people are like, nobody believes that. Nobody would believe that. And I understand, obviously, I have a lot of Christians and contrarian thinkers that follow me. So, of course, it's a skewed data set. But very few people, I feel like there was like 3 there, but like very few people are like, yeah, totally. People go like, well, you're magic God, because they're like mad at God. I was going to show in this discussion, 75%, up to 75% of all atheists have a negative emotional attachment to the God of the Bible, which isn't a surprise, and I plan to do a video on that, which kind of roots all of this. Nixie, all of it is connected to this thing. This idea that, like, here's the truth. Like, we don't know if there's a God. We don't know if it's created. We're looking at the data. They influence us. They tell us what to believe, whatever. But whether we believe it or not is going to be attached to some sort of subconscious driver, some sort of driving mechanism. And a lot of times this has to do with religious trauma or just wanting to do whatever you want to do. Do what thou wilt is the whole law of the land. So they're like, yeah, I believe that. I believe all these guys. And then they want to just argue that it's the scientific answer. It's not the scientific answer. It's just they have enough science to defend what is an emotional decision. And I think we all know that. Which is why I'm so upset about being banned from misinformation. It's like, okay, cool. You don't believe in God because you don't like God. Fine. Your theory, it's silly. It's a silly theory. I'm not mad at you. The theory doesn't comport with reality. Banned. And here's why it doesn't comport with the reality. I know I've covered this before, even on my YouTube. We live in a reality of cause and effect. The universe, having always existed or creating itself, isn't in line with how we know this universe works. Here's how we know things work. Something causes something to exist, and then entropy works on the thing and eventually destroys the thing. This is how reality actually works. So if you want to believe that the universe created itself, or the new hotness in science is that it always existed. Oh, the universe always existed. Prove me wrong. Yeah, right. We don't live in a universe where things always exist. So now what they're doing is they're putting the attribute of a creator capable of existing outside of space-time, which is really the necessary answer here. They're just applying that to the universe. They're just saying the universe is God. It always existed. Well, our God said he was the beginning, he said he is the beginning, the now, and the future. He always existed. He knows the end from the beginning. So at least our God wrote down his attributes. The universe didn't. Trying to make the universe God is silly to me. People say that, like, I'm God. I'm like, no, you're not. It's ridiculous. Like, it's like saying I'm my dad. Anyways, so if you want to just kind of think of like logic and how the universe works, the universe creating itself and then getting better over time is anathema to how things actually work. Okay, so why it's a very... The evidence doesn't justify the claim with the Big Bang Theory and that the universe created itself and that it got better over time. Everything. The sun igniting, the earth, the water, where the water came from, the magnetic field, where life came from, the moon, all these things. We don't see any of that. We don't see the earth forming. We don't see the moon forming. We see everything getting worse. We see the electromagnetic field weakening over time. We see the salt water or the fresh water becoming more salty. We see the salty water becoming more salty. We see things become less hospitable for life. We don't see things creating life and things becoming more organized over time. And here's a trick that I realize is that when you were a kid, you went to school and they started teaching you how to think and what to think. And they said, the universe created itself, the earth created itself, and you're just an animal. Just like you're like a chimpanzee. Same thing. And the kids, they said, no, most kids didn't believe that. No, animals are animals and humans are humans. Well, no, but you came from them. You go, well, you're so young. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't, I don't think so, because I have animals and I know what animals do and like how they are. And I don't think we're an animal. I think there's something different about us. They're like, no, you're an animal. And the universe created itself. And what happens is when you're forced to believe this to get a good grade on your test, say, now you can't trust your own intuition. And I'm just realizing how clever this is. Unfortunately, the devil's good at this. Now, at a root level, you're deducing reality. You're a kid. You've fallen 100 times. Your car runs out of batteries. You left your wagon out and the tires went flat. And you realize things get worse over time. And if you were a kid and you walked out and a ball went and appeared, you'd go, no, that doesn't happen. So you already deduce, you've learned how to use your hands and your motor skills, and you've watched your parents talk, and you've learned what language is and how to use language and how to walk and eat and sleep when you're tired. You figured a lot out. Little humans, we call them children. They're brilliant. They went from 0 to like 60% of our they can't drive a car maybe, but who knows what a kid's capable of. They're brilliant. The crash course. And 6, 7, 8 years old, they start to be told this thing. And they go, well, I don't think so, because that doesn't make any sense. But apparently, I can't trust my own intuition. Apparently, I can't trust my own ability to deduce things, because an animal's an animal and a human's a human, and things come out and get better. It doesn't work to me. But you know what? I concede my innate ability to deduce to you, the authorities. What do I believe? It's a very foundational stone. When that guy said this is a battle of reality, what we believe about this reality, they get you right there at the beginning. So anyways, Big Bang, evolution, many problems with all of these. I'm going to try and skim over some of these, but the common thread is going to be what the Bible said is aging very well, and every one of their agreed upon sets of truth or sets of data, whatever that term was, is falling apart, and we are covering it in real time. I'm so thankful for what I get to do. Thank you, everybody who helps us be able to do this. Thank you, God, for giving us this opportunity. We are journalists covering the total collapse of the official materialist scientific narrative in real time. And it turns out that all the things that I went through in my life and the ways that I think and the being the contrarian exactly positions me to be able to ingest and process and get this information to you in a digestible way. And it is falling apart. In the last year, the universe was proven not locally real. They're not going to talk about that one. Further advances on soft tissues and dinosaur bones. The Big Bang has entirely collapsed. It's a great time to be alive. It's amazing to me that for thousands of years, people had to believe purely on faith. And now, as more information is coming out and our instrumentation is getting better, we are finding out that what they taught us as unquestioned gospel dogma truth was all a set of beliefs, agreed upon beliefs. It's called the appeal to authority fallacy. Yeah, we agreed upon this, and we were all wrong. 99% confidence rate in the Big Bang Theory. This is Michio Kaku. I'm sure you've seen me cover this. I'm sure you've seen other advocates for intelligent design cover this. This thing going on with the Big Bang is the damage control they're having to do, sending out Neil deGrasse Tyson and these others to try to salvage this theory.
Beginning of time as we know it, and they're not supposed to be all that well formed. Well, guess what? These are looking a lot bigger and a lot more developed than we thought. And why does that matter? Well, for one thing, it could pretty much rewrite a whole bunch of astrophysics textbooks. So, of course, we called up the legendary theoretical physicist Michio Kaku. He's the futurist who always has me dreaming of the cosmos and the author of a bunch of books that might need to be tweaked now if it turns out that the universe is older than we think. Hey, Professor, I'm thinking of some of my favorites, the God equation, physics of the future, future of humanity. Most of them say the universe is about 13 billion years old. What if it's not?
Well, that's the problem. The James Webb Space Telescope is upsetting the apple cart. All of a sudden, we realize that we may have to rewrite all the textbooks about the beginning of the universe. Now, it takes many billions of years to create a galaxy, like the Milky Way galaxy, with 100 billion stars, many billions of years old. But the James Webb Telescope has identified 6 galaxies that exist half a billion years after the Big Bang that are up to 10 times bigger than the Milky Way galaxy. That shouldn't happen. There should not be primordial galaxies that are bigger than the Milky Way galaxy that are only half a billion years old. Something is wrong. We may have to revise our theory of the creation of the universe.
Okay. No small words there. I mean, that is a huge claim from Michio Kaku. And I love that he's got to I always kind of like the guy, and he's laughing about it. He's like, we were wrong. It's very hard for these people to say they're wrong. When, what's his name, Jack Horner finds the soft tissues, and he goes, well, my entire life's work and all my funding is based on dinosaurs being old and turning into chickens. Well, this is bad for this. I mean, I guess part of me wants to empathize a little bit with Michio Kaku and Professor Nixie. Like, if I worked my whole life in, I guess I've been doing this for a couple, almost 3 years now. But if I did this for another 20 years and I had hundreds of thousands of dollars in education debt and I worked at a university and they were my funding, and it was like, you know what? We totally disproved God of the Bible. It's totally not a thing and you're totally wrong. I bet you I would be like, no. So I get that. I can see why they would be doing this. But what he hit on there is very important. It should take billions of years to create a galaxy like the Milky Way galaxy. Why? Here's the process. However, the beginning was rapid expansion, if you're believing the Big Bang thing. And then you have dust clouds collapsing into nucleosynthesis. Suns ignite hydrogen and helium. You get this reaction. Then they explode, supernova. And then here comes the heavier elements, and those shoot out of there. And then those start to gather together around a different star system. And then eventually you start to get planets. And then you get a galaxy. And then this galaxy collides with another galaxy. They called it the collision theory. And then you get a big, massive galaxy. This takes time. They take their James Webb Space Telescope. They look back to the beginning of the universe, the infancy of the universe, and galaxies 10 times more massive than the Milky Way that they thought took 4 billion years. Or 10 billion, maybe. Maybe even 10 billion. Very many billion years. Now 300 million years, which is a fraction of that, the bigger galaxies. something is wrong here. Here's what's wrong. You needed to try to explain how this universe got here without a creator, without something outside of space and time with the agency and the resources necessary to create a universe. So you came up with a theory. I use this analogy a lot in my TikTok lives. It's like if you're in Minecraft or you're Mario and Luigi. Hey, Mario, how did I get here? Hey, Luigi, I don't know how did we get here? Yeah, has it exploded? Did baby? You come up with this story. You try to explain how their information-based reality with all of the properties in it and sentience controlling the characters, how this happened through natural processes, and whatever story they came up with would actually be wrong and eventually would fail. So this is what you have going on with the Big Bang. Hey, the universe created itself. Great. It had to happen. It created itself. It didn't. It always was there. It wasn't expanded. Well, they get the data and they look and it turns out they're wrong. And it's amazing to me that anybody's trying to defend this, because before this, all we had was mathematical models. We think it's this speed. We have redshift. We have CMBR. We think this is going to work, whatever. Then they saw the picture, and I've used this analogy before. I'm 45. You go back to 1980, and you go, okay, we expect Luke to have grown through this period, this process, and at this point, he's like less than a year old. He's going to be, not walking and, not eating solid foods. He's going to be a baby. And then you make all these theories about how and whatever, and then you actually look back in time. You and, Michael J. Fox get in a DeLorean, you go back and you see me, and I'm a grown man. I'm 45. You go, something is wrong here. This is the scope, the scale of the what is wrong that Michio Kaku's talking about. What does the Bible say? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He creates the earth first, which we're going to get into next. This is really cool. And then because of entropy, we would have had a fully mature universe that got worse over time. Like he created Adam, fully mature Adam, who got worse over time. Very long time for him, obviously, but this is what the Bible predicted, and this is what we're seeing now. Fully mature galaxies that are now supernova, or fully mature universe, and galaxies and things that are supernovaing, and they're entropically degrading, so they're getting worse over time. Boom, big win for the Bible, always. The truth always ages well. The only way to stop the truth is to just shut it up, I guess, because if it is able to speak, it damns the ones that are living in the anti-truth. Okay, check this one out. A lot of you don't know about this. I haven't covered it on my YouTube channel. I've been wanting to make a video about this. The official narrative is that the Earth was... You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mute this and play it in the background. And I'm going to give you my take on it. Maybe that'll help me avoid a copyright issue. Okay. Here's the story. You have forming galaxies, like they would say. I should give you play-by-play. Then you have the Earth suddenly. Here comes the moon. Water. This isn't going as well as I would like. Frozen over many times. Earth's evolution. Here we go. Maybe I should speed it up a little bit. Playback speed 1/4. Our solar system began in a dense... so here's the dust I was talking about. And then they swirled. Again, it would take time. And then it gets hotter. Hot dust swirling, of course. Then boom, explosion. Hydrogen fuses into helium. We were talking about that earlier. Then you get the sun. Just like that, our sun was born. And then, baby Earth was on its way too. That's the way they described that. Baby Earth was on its way too. We didn't talk about how it formed. It just baby Earth is on its way. But look, it's a hot Earth, hot fiery Earth, right? This is very important to the story because the Bible says what? Water formed on the water, in water, the waters of the great deep. So, of course, their story is hot. It's hot. It wasn't water. It was hot. Here it is, fully formed, by the way. And here's the rings of Earth. We don't have those anymore. Saturn does, which they just found out those are a lot younger than what they had thought, and make a video on that as well. Here's hot Earth, right? Definitely not water, but it's still a sphere. We go from sun to baby Earth, birth of our star, and then all of the collisions, right? Fire, heat, not water, volcanoes, things are just flying from space and smashing into the Earth forever. And here comes the moon. Does anybody believe that? Have you seen this moon theory? That the moon was a thing that flew through our solar system and hit the Earth, and it just went over into like a metal molten ball like that, and then it turned into the moon. Perfectly spherical moon. Nobody believes that, right? Like, where did that planet come from? Where did this small moon planet come from, and it hits the Earth. Imagine playing pool on a pool table the size of the state of Colorado, and you've got a pool ball and you have to hit another pool ball. It's never going to happen. It hits the Earth, of all the luck, and it melts and flies away from the Earth, and then it forms into the perfectly spherical moon. And oh, by the way, where does the dust come from? We don't know. It came from inside the Earth or on the Earth, or maybe it snowed it. Whatever, it's glitter. It was hit by glitter comets. Because if the moon was made of just regular dirt, you would just have a dirty ball in the sky, and it wouldn't provide light. But because it's made of reflective dust, it does provide light. So does anybody believe this story? I would say no. And if you do, you're lying to yourself. That's what I would say. So now the Earth is super hot, right? This is where it gets really interesting.
All water existed as gas. But 3.8 billion years ago, our planet cooled enough for water to condensate and become liquid. The very first primitive ocean covered this young Earth, and
this is called the water world theory. And this is new. This is the new hotness. And this is where science is going. Yeah, we didn't know where the water came from. Oh, it came from comets, whatever. Nope, now it was just a water Earth. I feel like we've read this before.
Turned it into a water world. H2O is an essential ingredient for creating living things. So, with all that water, life appeared on Earth about 3.7 billion years ago.
Appeared.
These earliest forms of life were microscopic organisms, but it was nearly a billion years after that that some of these organisms changed the course of the world.
Look at the water Earth.
Earth didn't stay as a water world very long.
No, probably like a couple days.
Soon, the very first continents emerged from the ancient ocean. Scientists call them cratons. As more and more land rose from the ocean, the very first supercontinent appeared on the planet.
Did you know that? Did you know that science is actually teaching now? Genesis? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep waters. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So, according to the Bible, we had a water world. And now science is like, turns out we had a water world. The Bible is still not right. Turns out that the universe was created in its fully mature form. And it turns out that the earth was a water ball. Nothing to see here. It's misinformation that you believed that before. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And God said, let there be vault between the waters to separate the water from the water. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And so it was called the vault sky, and there was evening and there was morning the second day. And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered into one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. He called the dry ground land, and the gathered water he called seas. If we go back to this book, this video, look at this. The land comes
as more and more land rose.
As more and more land rose from the ocean. Look at this. It's a water world that land comes out of. Look at that. It's like we're reading Genesis. Let the dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and gathered waters he called seas. What a time to be alive. This was not something that they allowed us to even conceive of. You couldn't even... If I would have said this 5 years ago on TikTok or 10 years ago on TikTok, if there was such a thing, they would have been like, yeah, that's misinformation. That is misinformation, because the Bible says it. And the accepted... Thanks, Mom. The accepted set of facts is that... Get this up here. It was fire. It was fire. comets hit the Earth. It was called the Great Bombardment, and water then delivered comets later. Comets delivered water later. This is what you have to believe. I could be like, well, no, I think it was a water world, and they could have just banned me from misinformation. You know what? Maybe it's not misinformation, what we believe, because maybe you have no idea. And maybe the theory that you had, which was based on the opposite of the Bible, maybe the theory that you had, which was taking what the Bible said and doing the opposite, is wrong. Maybe you guys are using misinformation. Maybe the Big Bang Theory was misinformation. Maybe Darwinian evolution is misinformation. Do I say it? Am I willing to be that heretical? Maybe that worm, bacon, fuzzy creature, chimpanzee, human story is misinformation. Can I still say that on YouTube? Am I shut down yet? The Bible, the Word of God, right again. Okay, this is just the start of it. I can't do this for too long because I'm going to try and skim over like 2 or 3 more things really quick, and then we're going to wrap up. But a very similar thing happened. I keep watching these things with the Big Bang, the most recent one, the universe not being locally real, and it's so damning to the official narrative, and it's so validating for Scripture. This isn't the first time this has happened. Very recently, in the last 100 years, that's not recent in my life, but in the scope of time, a guy named Charles Lyell pushed something called uniformitarianism, which we're going to get into in a second. He's basically what he did. Actually, I'm going to pull this up first. Charles Lyell saw himself as a spiritual savior of geology, freeing the science from the old dispensation of Moses. Dispensation meaning the time in which people believed Moses. He created uniformitarianism. He looked at, let's say, the Grand Canyon or the Missoula Canyon, the Columbia River Gorge, and he said, sure, this looks like a flood ripped through here. But the thing is, all we know with our crappy 1700s science is that we don't believe in the Bible. So, how else can this be explained without a catastrophic event? How else can we explain this massive canyon, which looks like a washout, without a flood? Because we can't have a flood. Because if we have a flood, Moses was right. So he came up with something called uniformitarianism. No science to back it up. Just said, hey, a lot of debris was moved over a long time. See? Same thing happened, just happened a lot slower. And that was really good because Lyell was a close friend of Chuck Darwin. Huge surprise. And contributed significantly to Darwin's thinking on the processes involved in evolution. Because you literally had a group of elite white European men in Europe hating the Bible, hating Christianity. I've covered this a lot with Thomas Henry Huxley. They wanted out of this theocracy. This is where the Enlightenment, the Age of Enlightenment, all of these things happen. The Renaissance. What you had was people going, okay, look, I know it looks like God created us and the earth, and it looks like the Bible's right here. I know it looks like that. And it maybe is, but we don't believe that anymore. And we have to figure out a way to explain this reality without that. How do we do this? Well, we need a universe that creates itself. We need life to happen randomly, whatever, okay, random things. And we need a lot of time for that to happen, which is great because the only way we can explain these canyons without a flood is a lot of time. So, hey, Chuck. Yes, Chuck? The Chuck and Chuck. What if we just say that canyon took hundreds, nobody can even conceive of something more than whatever, 10,000 years. Can you even imagine Jesus was 2,000 years ago? Like everything, nobody can even conceive of a million years ago. So we'll say Monopoly money million years ago. 280 million. Because at the time, that's like what they were doing. They were saying like, not nearly 14 billion. Pretty soon it's going to be a Google million years, a million zeros at the end of it. That's what they're going to have to do to try and salvage the Big Bang evolution. It's too slow. We need more time. So at the time it was like 120 million years. People are like, that's a long time. And obviously now it's 10 times that, and it's going to be 100 times that one by the time they're done with it. Their hero in the plot is time, which is funny because over time things get worse. Like if you the more time, the worse it gets. Your car, you took really good care of it. You bought in 1986. How's it doing? Anyways, so they're sitting together and they're talking about this. Close friend of Charles Darwin, and he contributed to this. They met in a group. There was the X Club that came. Huxley was doing the X Club. Scientific elites. They wanted an unfettered order from the constraints of the old order, which was Christianity, and they just made this up. Yeah, long time. You're an animal, and now here we are, 250 years later, and you say, hey, maybe these people 250 years ago who just had biases and weren't doing good science and had a bunch of assumptions and no evidence, maybe they were wrong. You heretic. I'm going to say that again. If you don't realize how ridiculous, maybe those guys 250 years ago that were doing something, what other things from 250 years ago do we think is best practices today? How many things that we do today do we think they did just as well 250 years ago? How about our medicine? How about, technology? Have we made any progress? Nope. These men were so resolute in their beliefs, so damn sure of themselves, with no evidence. They had no evidence that 250 years later, if you say the data that we have now doesn't fit with that theory, they ban you. This is where we're at. Science. Okay, you might hear me say that and go, seems a little bit strong, but it's not. It's actually kind of conservative. If you want a deeper dive on these, I've covered some of these in bits in different parts. Go watch my flood video, and I cover this video right here. Very deep. This is Nerd Night in Vancouver. It's an awesome geologist guy talking about the Pacific Northwest floods. That broke geology, just like everything, like Big Bang's broken, geology's broken. Everything, all these lies that they had are being broken by data. This guy, I cover it really deep in the flood video. It's like 5 or 6 lives back, something like that. Go watch that if you want to go more into it. But I'm just going to show a quick clip from this.
Lakes that were scoured out, and they were scoured out by little tornadoes and these high-velocity floods that came through. We call them Coke Lakes, K-O-L-K. And so you saw Coke Lakes scoured out.
The Coke Lakes. Can you see this picture? Can you see this little animation of a tornado? It's like a whirlpool. You can imagine a whirlpool just tearing up, a little bit of ground. These are, this is like a road here. These are Coke Lakes that are hundreds and hundreds of feet wide and dozens of feet deep. So if you look at this little tornado guy here on the left, ripping this up, I want you to imagine the size of this body of water that was going through here to create a tornado, a water tornado, whatever. Ripping boulders out. They say that Portland, Oregon, was under 400 feet of water. If you're in the city of Denver, the Republic Plaza is 400 feet. It's 40 stories. Find any 40-story building. And go there. I did this when my family and I were in Denver a few months ago. And we looked up, and I said, imagine this city being under that much water. That's what was in Portland. So, okay, they're seeing this, and they're going, whoa, this looks like a flood. Continuing.
Bedrock everywhere. And then when you go down into the Columbia River Valley, this is Washington, this is Oregon, this is I-84, and the Columbia River is deep down in here. And you can see where water levels got up to this point. That's all loose from there on up. This is all Columbia River basalt that is exposed down there. And you can just follow it all up and down the whole system. And so he saw all of these features. And
he is a guy named J. Harlan Barretts. J. Harlan Barretts, who made this discovery of the Pacific Northwest catastrophic flooding, who was immediately attacked by science. He made the discovery, and he said, hey, this is a massive flood. And they kicked him out of science. They held a hearing, basically, in Washington, D.C., and they brought in the world's greatest scientists at the time, the official, rule set, the guys that write the set of beliefs that we have, J. Harlan, was it Galooly, Waters, and Whitford, like the guys that write the textbooks, the geology textbooks, they brought them in and they made Bretz look ridiculous, and he left there with his tail between his legs and he quit doing science. That's when they say he, J. Harlan Bretz. Because again, in order to sell a lie, you have to silence the truth. Holy Moses, you can't make that any more clear. They can't push this lie. If somebody has the truth, this is why blackmail happens. It's like, no, this is what happened, dude. It's like, no, it didn't happen. It's like, I have the evidence. It's like, well, we got to get rid of that.
And in 1923, he put together a first paper, and he called it the Spokane Flood. And he said that a large flood came down through Spokane, created the channel Scablands, as you can see here. There is Wallula Gap. And he described this. Now, the detractors of the day said, where did the water come from, number one? And number two, it's catastrophic. You're breaking the laws of uniformitarianism, this big, huge word that goes back to the beginning of geology in Scotland with James Hutton back in the late 1700s. And you just can't do that to break the laws.
Think about that. Think about that. This man said, your science is wrong, and a massive flood came through here. And they said, you'll never work in this town again. He made a discovery. It's one of the greatest discoveries in geology, in the history of geology. And they said to him, you can't say this thing that you're saying. You cannot say the thing because you're breaking the law of uniformitarianism. You're breaking the law of our great priest, Charles Lyell and James Hutton. I don't care about your data. J. Harlan Bretz, I don't care. I don't care that you're right. You are breaking the law of uniformitarianism, which is something we totally made up, but we agree on, and you can't question us. You think this is new? Jesus said, you're of your father, the devil, the original liar. And they have to lie to hide the truth of God's reality. Oh, maybe that's a one-off. VOR, you're just being sensationalist. This is misinformation. Lyell, friends with Darwin. 2 Peter 3, we'll read that in a second. The multi-regional hypothesis model of human evolution argues that our earliest hominid ancestors evolved in Africa, then radiated out into the world. This is Homo erectus, not Homo sapien. So Homo erectus evolved in Africa, radiated out into the world based on paleoanthropological data rather than genetic evidence. The theory states that after Homo erectus arrives in various regions around the world hundreds of thousands of years ago, they slowly evolved into modern humans. This sounds good, right? Totally wrong. Totally wrong. But this was taught until 1984. I was alive, probably in grade school, learning about this. And this is what they believed, and they were totally wrong. However, here we go. They slowly evolved into modern humans. Homo sapiens, this theory posits that Homo sapiens evolved from several different groups of Homo erectus in several places throughout the world. So if you're following this, it means that pre-human left Africa, and then all of the different humans evolved into different versions of Homo sapien, meaning that humans are all different. This is what they believed. Guess who really believed this? Yeah, Chuck Darwin. Yep, I'm not going to cover this tonight, but in The Descent of Man, he talks about how the Aboriginals would be vanquished by the better civilizations the white Europeans in his belief system because they were lesser humans. This is where eugenics comes from. This is where social Darwinism comes from. The idea that there's literally more evolved humans. This is what Madison Grant was pushing in The Passing of the Great Race. This is what the H-man in Germany was pushing through Haeckel, who totally lied and faked his forged his embryos. I covered that in a video a couple videos back. Fakes, frauds, dark roots of evolution. That video. I go deep. This is like a 50,000 foot view of all these things. I go deep into all of that. This is a dangerous theory that man goes out, pre-man goes out and evolves into man, and you have higher evolved and lower evolved humans. And it just so happens in their worldview that the more white you were, the more evolved you were. This is what these yahoos believed. Totally wrong and totally antithetical to what the Bible teaches, that we're all sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, which is where we're going with this. However, genetic and paleoanthropologic evidence gathered since 1980s has shown conclusively that simply cannot be the case. Homo sapiens evolved in Africa and dispersed out into the world somewhere between 50 and 62,000 years ago. What happened is quite interesting. So they moved this way up to 50, 60,000 years. What changed their thinking in the 1980s? This is the multi-regional evolutionary hypothesis. If you haven't looked into it, this is what they used to teach. Not at all. The Bible teaches God made Adam and Eve, and we are getting worse over time. We see this in their begetting ages and their lifespan. 960, 820, 750, whatever, down to 120. Just get worse. Entropy, mutations aggregate. Exactly what we see. Genetic entropy. Okay. What actually happens here? How mitochondrial Eve connected all humanity and rewrote human evolution. In January 2012, it marked the 25th anniversary of the discovery of mitochondrial Eve. You've seen me do videos on this. The common ancestor of every human alive today. Did the Bible predict this? Did the Bible predict that the universe was created in a fully mature form and is getting worse over time? Yes. Did the Bible predict that the world was made in water and the land came out of it? Yes. Did the Bible predict that Adam and Eve are the father and the mother of all living humans? Yes. Did the flood? Did the Bible teach that there was catastrophic flooding? Yes. We've covered 4 points, and each of these points, they read the Bible and taught the opposite of the Bible. Oh, one man, one woman? Nope, we all evolved separately, which led to Darwinism and social Darwinism and eugenics. Them using science for their own gain. Oh, uniformitarianism. Oh, turns out we were wrong. Oh, Big Bang Theory. This is it. What happens? If you are refusing the truth, you're going to get stuck in your lies. And the more evidence that's going to come out, it's going to damn your position. You're going to lose if you're not on the right side of it. And then now you speak the truth and they ban you. Okay. The common ancestor of every human alive today. Here's everything you need to know about why the mother of humanity is so important. Science hated this. When they said we all come from one man and one woman, the dinosaurs, the white European, probably social eugenics, probably like secretive or maybe not secretive eugenicists were going, nope, there's no way that these people are as evolved as we are. I'm serious. This is what they said. Nope, no way that people group or that people group are as evolved. We're more evolved. We deserve the money. We deserve the power. Darwin's book. Right? We all know Darwin's book. Oh, it's in everybody's favorite holy scripture of secular science. Charles Darwin, looking like Moses. On the origin of the species. The origin of the species, right? The origin of the species by means of natural selection. The origin of species. Charles Darwin. Oh, yep, Charles Darwin. The origin of the species. We all come from the animals. Charles Darwin, the origin of the species. Natural selection, origin of species. What's the actual title? Chuck? The origin of species by means of natural selection, which, by the way, Huxley didn't believe in it, and neither did Lyell. They just were like, hey, fine, people are believing this, we're going to go with it. There's more to this title, though. Or imagine if this said something about how this is advantageous for the white European male. And this is like their or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. My belief system, the God that I serve, Jesus, he said, love your brother as you love yourself. But no greater love than a man has than to lay his life down for another man. Treat your brother as you want to be treated. He who is greatest among you needs to be the servant, basically. This is the ideology of the Messiah, the God, who became man on the earth that I follow. That is the ideology of the people pushing the accepted set of beliefs. Survival of the fittest. And how we get to see how the favored races struggle for life in this death to the finish Thunderdome that we're in. Absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And Christianity's the problem. Christians doing bad things is a problem. Yeah. Love everybody. Stop judging. Worry about your own eye and your splinters, your 2x4 in your eye. For the love of things that are good, whatever. Stop judging and stop trying to get the splinters out of their eyes. Work on your 2x4. Mind your own business and do the right thing and be a good person. Because that's what the person that we follow taught us. The person that they follow taught them that they're all animals and that the white Europeans are the best. And that, you know what? They deserve to have more. Imagine them using science for their own benefit. And we're the problem. Yep. Okay. In 1987, Rebecca Kahn, Mark Stone King, and Alan Wilson published a paper in Nature that dropped a bombshell on our understanding of human evolution. How many bombshells are we going to need? It turns out that the dumb thing we believed in was totally wrong. Ugh. I can't believe it. Everything we thought we knew is wrong. And the Bible was right. Misinformation. Until then, the prevailing theory held that different groups of humans had evolved separately in different regions. More evolved over here, less evolved over here. More animal-like over here, more human-like over here. This is what they taught. Social Darwinism. Eugenics. By the way, all of these guys are eugenicists, and they would meet at the American Natural... Teddy Roosevelt was a eugenicist. William Fairfield was Osborne. All these guys, there's a whole slew of them in my Oda Banga video. I cover it. They started the American Natural History Museum. J.P. Morgan funded it. I have to do these shows for like 2 hours to just dump this information out to you guys. I hope you can use this and share it and whatever. Pick it apart. Somebody needs to start take these videos and edit them and make clips or something because I don't have time to do it. This is so important. J.P. Morgan funded, I don't normally do this, but watch this. I shouldn't say watch this, but J.P. Morgan, the American Natural History, I know I spelled it wrong, History Museum. Who funded this thing? Corporate support, Morgan Stanley. That's going to pull up the wrong one. That's why I shouldn't say watch this. It's a very specific thing I defined, but basically... the guys that started this, let's see, the American Natural, J.P. Morgan funded, who founded the American Natural History Museum? Here we go. Albert Smith Bickmore, totally creepy when you look into that guy. One-time student of Harvard zoologist Louis Agassiz. That guy, I can't say his name right, but he's a full-on eugenicist, like one of the most evil men in scientific history. Louis Agassiz, look into him, is successful in his proposal to create a natural history museum in New York City, winning the support of William Dodge, Theodore Roosevelt, and this is a whatever, I could go back in to look at, but the funding was from J. Pierpont Morgan. J. Pierpont Morgan, is J.P. Morgan. He funded it. So just think about this. J.P. Morgan funded all these eugenicists to build their Cathedral of Natural Science, and it's hallowed today in all of the Hollywood movies. Night at the Museum, guess where that was? And just go look up the American Natural History Museum Annual Eugenics. Yeah, here they all are. Here they all are. Natural History Museum. The eugenics movement, in retrospect. Yeah, look at all these fine white people. Bona fide. This is a fun picture to look at. This is the actual, I don't want to have to pull that whole thing up. This is the roll call for them. Who's all in here? The who's who of the rich elites at the American Natural History Museum pushing eugenics. At the eugenics conference, they did this for like 3 years. Hey guys, how are we going to sterilize the people that aren't white? They got to stop reproducing exponentially. They're animals. They got Oda Banga locked up in the Bronx Zoo at this time. And they're getting together, talking about how they can sterilize the non-whites and thwart their progress. Because they believed in evolution. What do you think happened? Do you think they were so convinced by Darwin's theory and the lack of fossils and all of the fakes and forgeries that they kept doing? Piltdown Man, Haeckel's embryos. They were just so compelled. What was the one in Europe? Sussex Man, whatever. They're so compelled by the forgeries they were making? Or did they just want the theory to be true to push their narrative? I wonder which one of those. There was no science back then to support what they were doing. So you got to ask yourself, what was their motivation? Okay. Until then, the prevailing theory held that different groups of humans had evolved separately in different regions. Beginning about 2 million years ago, their groundbreaking work, Rebecca Kahn and Mark Stone King, revealed that all humans carried mitochondrial DNA in their cells that dated back to a single woman. Not what science wanted to hear. And of course, they say 200,000 years ago. Saying 7,000 years ago is going to look bad. Although, if you look back at my TikTok videos about this, I need to re-release those or make a new version of it. Y.E. Chang and another statistician built a model of a genealogic model dating back to when these people could have existed, and it shocked the world when it said 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. So their 200,000 years is based on the molecular clock and assumptions with the phylogenetic tree and stratigraphy, which are probably severely in question. Stratigraphy and the stratigraphic layers with the soft tissue and dinosaur bones, which is another thing I can't even get to tonight. The same thing though. Shocker. We were wrong. Oh, soft tissues were here. Shocker. Coelacanth. Oh, shocker. Mitochondrial Eve. Though their research was initially met with tremendous controversy, just like J. Harlan Barrett's. What's the problem? Well, they're speaking about the truth, and we're not interested in the truth in these parts. We're interested in disproving the Bible. That's our thing. What we want to do is to stop people from believing in the Bible. And so the problem with you saying, Rebecca, the old white dinosaur pushing this narrative, Rebecca, I need you to come in my office. You understand what all humans coming from one woman looks like, don't you? Do you like your job, Rebecca? Do you like your degree and the only application you have functionally in society, which is doing science? Do you know how bad this is going to look for us, Rebecca? Same conversation. Mary Schweitzer, you found soft tissues in dinosaur bones. Do you know what this is going to look like? This looks like that maybe the flood happened. The dinosaurs were here more recently. Do you like your job, Mary? Mary Schweitzer said, I was afraid to tell anybody. She made the greatest discovery in paleontologic history. The greatest discovery. Holy Moses, there's soft tissues in dinosaur bones, and maybe we could make Jurassic Park a real thing, or maybe they were here more recently, maybe they died more recently, maybe the reasons like the Ica stones and maybe that's not a good example, but Marco Polo and all these legends of the dragons, maybe it's the thing, maybe they were here more recently. Holy cow, this is crazy, right? No. This sounds like our whole theory's in trouble, Mary. Do you like your job? Handled by Jack Horner. I'm telling you, these meetings happened. Though their research was initially met with tremendous controversy, the death knell of the multi-regional hypothesis had already been struck. The idea here was that our predecessor, Homo erectus, had left Africa 2 million years ago and spread out around the world. Then those different populations adapted to new environments by evolving into Homo sapiens. Although constant gene flow and interbreeding between these different populations meant that everyone remained part of the same species. They have to invoke bottlenecking, the whole thing. This model was seen as the best way to explain how this had happened. Discovery of mitochondrial Eve gave crucial support to recent African origin model. By the way, if you don't know, Northwest Africa is basically really close to the Fertile Crescent. They're within a couple hundred miles of there. It'd be like saying all of humanity originated in Kansas when it actually originated in, the Pacific Northwest or something. I mean, that might even actually be less far. But anyways. East Africa. Somewhere between 152,000 years, 100,000 years ago. Also, older fossils discovered, strange fossils, blah, 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 blah. How did mitochondrial Eve manage to rewrite the story of human evolution? For that matter, what is mitochondrial Eve? Unlike her biblical namesake, which they didn't want to give her that name, by the way. They're like, you can't do that. She wasn't the only woman on Earth. In a sense, she's just a quirk of statistics, right? But if that was the case, then she's easily the most important quirk of statistics who ever lived. This is something important. Actually means the most recent common ancestor of all human beings, or MRCA, who lived anywhere from 2,000 to 40,000 years ago. Right there, aren't we? By tracing the subtle thing, the great ancestor shortage. No, this isn't the one. Bummer. I screwed up, you guys. I have the wrong one. Oh, and then they found Y chromosomal atom too. I thought this was the one. Oh, yeah, there's the T. Chang model. Modeling the recent common ancestry of all living humans, which, if we pulled this one out, it says 7,000 years. That's what I was talking about earlier. Anyways, I thought this was the one where they were, where she was talking about how she was really surprised how mean everybody was, and that she was excited because she was doing actual science. And they said, you're not here to do science. So I kind of want to look that up. I thought I had the right one. I really thought it was this one here. Why are they not talking about it? Let me see if I can find this here real quick, you guys. Because this is important to read. I'm going to switch to that so I don't share all my emails. This would be a good time to have a co-host, and the co-host could say something like, well, Luke, you're really giving it to them tonight. Mitochondrial Eve. Lucky Mother. Is this the one? Or is it the same one? Oh, I found it. Yay! Cool. That didn't go as bad as I thought it was going to. Here we go. Here we go! What initially drew you to the area of research? I did my undergraduate degree. Interesting behaviors. I applied to grad school. I studied anthropology. What was the genesis of the paper? I purified DNA from 150 donors. I started looking at these things. I found it. How did your work, let's see here, thesis worked when I did my PhD. Important samples. The bulk of the data came from Becky Kahn's work. How much did the data or debate on the nature of human origins inform your work? A lot. I realized humans had spread over 12,000. I'm almost there. Were you amazed at how big of a reaction your paper would provoke? As soon as I started talking about the preliminary analysis of data at scientific meetings, I got immediate hostile reactions. Again, I want you to think about this. This is all of the people. This is J. Harlan Barrett's. This is anyone who opposes their priests, basically. J. Harlan Barrett's had to deal with this. Mary Schweitzer had to deal with this. Obviously, Rebecca Kahn's having to deal with this. As soon as I started talking about the preliminary analysis of data at scientific meetings, I got immediate hostile reactions. They find the most... How exciting is it to find out that we're all related to one woman? That the human... We didn't know this. We all have amnesia. And in the human story, it turns out that every human on the earth is related to one woman. That's so cool. That's so cool. Hey, I've made this discovery. Everybody's wrong. And we're all related to one woman. Check this out. It's crazy. Immediate hostile reactions. especially from some paleontologists. Do you know what this looks like? Also some human geneticists that didn't understand population genetics. Mark Stone King, I was completely taken by surprise. I was still a naive graduate student. Yeah, I hadn't been fully introduced to how this actually works. I was a naive student. I'm just like, yeah, I did science. What's the problem? I made a discovery. Isn't that what I'm supposed to do? No, Mark. This sounds too much like the Bible. You're fired. They fired Mark Armistead, who found soft tissues in the Tyrannosaurus Rex. No, Triceratops horn. Look that up. I've covered that before. He ended up getting a 6-figure settlement because it was an unfair termination. They fired him because he found soft tissue in dinosaur bones and wrote a paper on it. I was still a naive graduate student, and this was my first experience dealing with this sort of attention, which fell on my shoulders because at that time Becky had moved to Hawaii. It was, let us say, a real eye-opener, and I learned some valuable lessons. What kind of lessons do you think he learned? Mark. I need my, my coffee cup was raptured. It's a bummer. I was going to do the, Lumberg thing. Mark, I need you to come into my office. Next time you go off doing science, I need you to get me that report before you tell anybody, okay? And I need you to really clear it with the brass, what you're about to break. Because if you go out making discoveries that make our theory look bad and the Bible look good, you're in deep water. But not like a flood water, because we know that didn't happen because of science. How would you characterize your experience with both the academic and the public relation to your breakthrough? People tended to have one of two reactions. They either thought they knew this answer all along, or they thought it couldn't possibly be right. Some are very dismissive, and you know that only about 40% of Americans even believe in biological evolution, and a lot of these people even think that it doesn't apply to humans. So there are some religious objections. Why would you religiously object? Especially when the mitochondrial Eve story took off, and you had to say that mitochondrial Eve wasn't the same woman as Eve in the Judeo-Christian Bible story of Genesis. It took about 5 years before I could drink a strawberry margarita because it still looked so much like a placenta purification, blah, blah. On the academic side, one would like to think that scientists would focus... On the academic side, one would like to think that scientists would focus their criticism on potential weakness in the evidence and interpretations. One would like to think that, right? When I debate the atheists. It's like, blah, blah, blah. Where's your peer-reviewed paper? One would like to think that they would attack the argument, right? What am I saying here? Attack the data. What am I saying, and can you attack that? And while that was true for most, there was a minority who chose to attack the study using any and every means, no matter how preposterous the allegation, simply because they didn't like the conclusions. I was also amazed by the public reaction, in particular to the concept that all of the MTD variation traced back to a single ancestor. As an evolutionary geneticist, to me this seemed patently obvious, given a single origin of life, from which all living things on this planet descended, had to be the case, blah, blah, blah. So you're always going to get the official narrative in there, because you have the data and then you have the assumptions, and they're going to, I can be very clear. Mary Schweitzer isn't a young earth creationist. Mark Stone King, Rebecca Kahn, none of these people are. Michio Kaku, they're not. They're all in their compartment and, overall just kind of accepting the official narrative. But yeah, this is what happens in this reality when science discovers that the Bible was right, and it shocks the scientific community because their system of lies is perpetuated by not knowing the actual truth, not having the actual evidence. So we could have all predicted. I wish I would have. Jason Lisle did. Jason Lisle predicted that they would take pictures of the beginning of the universe and they'd find fully formed galaxies. He hung his whole career. That guy is a cowboy, man. He risked everything, and he said fully formed galaxies. I wish I would have had the chutzpah to do that. I'm not sure. I have more confidence now, and I think I would definitely do that. But at the time, I don't know if I would have had the moxie to do that. But he did, and he was right. And nobody said anything. Nobody said, "Hey, Jason, congratulations, you're the only scientist in the world that predicted this." Nope. Gaslit, whatever. So we have... I want to finish this with 2 Peter 3. I didn't mean to go on so late tonight. A lot to cover. Dear friends, this is my second letter to you. Above all, I almost didn't do this. Above all, you must understand that in the last days, scoffers will come scoffing. I professionally deal with that. That's a real thing. Scoffers come scoffing. That's what we do on TikTok, is just get scoffed at by the scoffers. In the last days, scoffers will come scoffing and following their own evil desires. So it's not just scoffing and following their own evil desires. They will say, where is this coming, he promised? Ever since our ancestors died, everything goes on as it has since the beginning of creation. But they deliberately forget that long ago, by God's word, the heavens came into being, and the earth was formed out of water and by water. Meaning that this is like an innate, inherent truth of this reality. They know it. They deliberately forget that long ago, by God's word, information-based reality. You've seen my content on that. I'm going to make a video here on YouTube at some point. Information being fundamental, the information being the word of God. This is where the science is going. But they deliberately forget that long ago, by God's word, the heavens came into being, and the earth was formed out of water and by water. So they deny cosmology, they deny geology, this is saying this. They deny the Genesis account and that we started with water, which now is being taught as actual science. By these waters also, the world of that time was flooded or deluged and destroyed. They deliberately forget these things. It's not true that their version of the story isn't true. They are deliberately forgetting this, which is why the Bible is aging so well, because you can't change the truth. It just gets better over time. And if you have a lie, it's harder to keep it together. I use this analogy quite a bit. If you're cheating on a significant other and it's on your phone, it's like, I can't look at my phone. It's like, why? And the next thing you know, it's like, yeah, who's this person? You tell this other story. It's like, and eventually it's like, okay, I did the thing. But if you're telling the truth, it's like, yeah, here's my phone. It's all good. It's all good. And the more they look into it, the more it's like, oh yeah, you were actually at your friend Ray's house. That's crazy. Good. Tell him I said hi. If you're going to try to perpetuate a lie, you have to stifle anyone speaking the truth. Hey, I saw the thing. This guy did the thing. He had the glove. He had the whatever. You have to stifle that person. I said to Nixie on that live comment, I was only in there for about a minute and a half. I said, Nixie, you don't cut out a man's tongue for lying. Just think about that. Has the government censoring people, I can't believe people don't realize this. Has the person in history that's on the side of silencing people ever been right? Ever? Were the Christians that burned witches, was that right? Was Mao and Stalin and Lenin, was it... The fact that grown men and that people are thinking that they're on the right side of history by stopping people from believing in the Bible, and that people that believe in the Bible should be silenced. In 2023, this is insane. And Jesus said this is what would happen, and we know how this ends. And that's part of why I wanted to do this show, is like, I'm not a doomsdayer. We might be here for the end. We might not be, we don't know. I don't know. But the scenario where the children turn the parents in for believing in God unto death is in view. If I had to try to look at this, just trace the trend, it could be decades. It could be 30 years, could be 60 years. It could be 5 years, who knows? Some major catastrophic events or something, and it could really expedite the process. But this scenario where Christianity and believing in the Bible is misinformation. And, it's like what are the laws of society? Do what thou wilt to be the whole law of the land. Only rampant inclusion in every way, in every situation. And blindly trust science no matter what. In that scenario, we're in for it as Christians. And Jesus said this. Because if we're doing it right, we represent him, and the world hates him because the world hates truth, just like we read in John 14. So, Christians, we're on the right side of history. I encourage you. The reason why this is a peace sign, it's a couple things. It's V for VOR. It's a peace sign. We come in peace. Jesus came in peace, and it's victory. And you win in peace. Jesus laid down his life and beat Rome. Do you understand that? They wanted him to pick up arms, and that's not how you do it. Sure, political upheaval, next thing gets set in place, you're in the same problem. He laid down his life and defeated Rome. And he required his apostles to do the same thing. So we know where this goes. Love your brother. Okay? Don't worry about what they're doing. Just don't worry about it. You've got your own problems. I have my own problems. And we have enough focus on what we're doing. Now, if you're in a church setting and you, like it says in the Bible, you pull them aside and you go, hey, I've got this thing I noticed. I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. Best practices here. I hope you do the same for me. That's different. Don't worry about what they're doing. As for me and my house, we serve God, right? Love God, love your brother. Do your research, because there's no reason why we can't have these discussions with people around us in our lives in a peaceful, profitable, by profitable I mean positive way. And I think if you're watching the show, you're probably feeling led to be able to give an apologetic. You look at the show tonight, make notes. We all have our content. We're all consuming a lot of content. We're all busy. I get that. Make notes. Research the things that my work piggybacks on the work of guys like Kent Hovind and Jason Lyle and Stephen Meyer and James Tour. Piggyback, consolidate this, take what I've done or go look what they're looking at and do your own research. But let's see what happens. Buckle up, because in a world system built on lies, the truth is the enemy. End transmission.